Boldwood presents Turf War, written by Gillian Godden and read by Max Dowler. Chapter 1. Revelation Day. Red-faced and flustered, Dante Silva ran through the back door of the pub where he lived with his family. "Mum?" he shouted up the staircase. "Mum, are you there?" Hearing the noise and laughter from the bar, he walked towards it, puzzled. Everything seemed normal, but Dante had an uneasy feeling. The telephone call he had received earlier from his mum had sounded urgent, but as he stuck his head around the door that led into the pub, everything looked as it normally did. Except his mum was nowhere to be found. Dan was about to wave Phyllis down, the barmaid who had worked for them since day one, when he felt a hand on his shoulder. He turned sharply. "Mum, oh God, you made me jump. Is everything all right? What's up?" Relieved at seeing her, Dante smiled, until he noticed Maggie Silva wasn't smiling back. She looked different. Stern, even. Maggie shouted through the door. "Phyllis, we're going into the staff room and we're not to be disturbed, okay?" Walking past Dante, she opened the door to the small room, giving him a strange look as she did so. The uneasy feeling he'd had before returned. As Dan looked inside the staff room, his eyes opened wide, and he stood rooted to the spot. "Dad, you're home!" Dan looked at his mum and then at his dad, Alex Silva, before making his way forwards to greet him. "How come you're home?" He smiled, but Dan was puzzled. This wasn't the happy homecoming he would have expected for his father's return, and his gut instinct told him something was wrong. Very wrong. No way should his father even be out of prison yet, and his mother had never mentioned anything about an early release. Where were the welcome home banners? Why weren't they smiling? And more to the point, where was Deana, his older sister? If anyone should have been there to greet their father, it should most definitely have been Deana. "What's wrong? Where's Deana?" Dan asked nervously. Stubbing his cigarette out into the ashtray, Alex Silva spied his young son. "I thought you might be able to enlighten us both on that question. After all, she's not stacking bloody shelves, is she?" Alex's voice was low and somber as he glared at his young son. "Let's go upstairs. I feel like this is going to be a long night." Standing up, Alex brushed away imaginary dust from his shirt and walked past Dante and Maggie, leading the way upstairs to their living quarters. A chill ran down Dan's spine. Alex had already hinted that he knew Deana had lied about her part-time job at a supermarket. Their cover was clearly blown, and now all their lies were about to bite them on the arse. He followed his mum and dad in silence, his face burning hot with shame and embarrassment. Once upstairs, he half expected to see Deana sitting there, but she wasn't, and her eerie absence gave him a sense of foreboding. Alex held his hand out towards an armchair for Dan to sit down, while he and Maggie sat on the sofa. Tentatively, Dan sat. His mouth was dry. "Where's Deana, Dad?" he asked again. Alex rubbed his hands together and sat back in his seat. "Deana has been kidnapped, Dante." Alex let his words sink in slowly as he watched Dan's jaw drop and his face pale. The enormity of his words echoed around the room. "Kidnapped? By who?" Dan's palms felt sweaty and he rubbed them together to dry them. His heart was pounding in his chest and out of habit, he adjusted his glasses. "We don't know who has taken her, but we do have an idea why. Well, now we do, anyway. Just what have you been up to, you lying, thieving, deceitful scumbag?" Alex threw his hands in the air and shook his head angrily. "You have caused a turf war, Dan. Everyone dealt on their own patch until you two came along, thinking the world was your oyster. What are you, the cartel? This is serious stuff. People have been killed because dealers are turning on each other. And why? Because two stupid school kids think they can outsmart the professionals. For fuck's sake, Dan. I thought you at least had a brain. I need every detail from you. Maggie, pour us all a whiskey. I don't care if he's underage. He's acted like a man, so let him drink like a man. Cocking his head to one side, Alex flashed a sarcastic smile. I get the feeling he's going to need more than orange juice to oil those vocal cords. Maggie got up, not saying a word, but he could see the disappointment in her eyes. Dante remembered warning Deana of this moment, but he hadn't expected to face the firing squad alone. What had happened to her? The last time he'd seen Deana, she had stormed out of the house and slammed the door behind her, going God knows where. And now? Well, only time would tell if they would see her alive again. Casting a glance at his mother, Dante felt more ashamed about the lies he had told her. She was a good mother, trying to build them a life, and they had abused her trust. They had treated their drug dealing like a game, when it was real life, and in real life people got hurt. Would their mum ever forgive them? Probably, but she would never forget. Alex took a gulp of his drink and smacked his lips as the warm liquid moistened his dry throat. He placed the glass on the coffee table before him, in no mood for games. On the surface, he felt like a swan, gliding along and trying to accept the situation he was faced with. But underneath, he was in a wild panic. He felt sick when he thought about Deana's fate and who was behind her kidnapping. But although his mind was in turmoil, he couldn't let those thoughts swamp his logical thinking. I'm waiting, Dan. It's going to be a long night waiting and wondering if Deana's kidnappers are going to call back, so we might as well use the time listening to your story. Dante bowed his head before speaking. It all started with the cannabis, Dad. You know, the plants that you were keeping at Luke's house. Luke? Alex's brows furrowed. You're in this with Luke, so that's 3 of you. No, 4 of us. We've been working for his brother Kev as well. Shaking his head, Alex reached over to the table and picked up a packet of cigarettes. Kev, that arrogant clown who runs a drug den openly. Shit, this just gets worse. Nodding his head, Dante swallowed hard. I've just been to visit him in hospital. He was beaten up pretty bad, nearly killed. When I went to his flat, squat, 2 well-dressed men were about to murder him. Dante burst into tears and put his head in his hands. I'm sorry, Dad. Oh my God, I was only trying to help him. They were going to kill him. Dante sobbed. Alex's blood ran cold. He had a gut feeling that he wasn't going to like what Dante said next. What did you do, Dante? He asked tentatively. How did you help Kev? Snot dripped from Dante's nose and he wiped it away with his sleeve. Me and Deana had run into some trouble before when we'd dropped off some drugs. So we'd started carrying guns, the ones you kept in the golf bag. Rubbing his face to dry his eyes, Dante looked up at Alex, who sat there stunned as he listened to his son's confession. I had it with me, and when I saw they were going to kill Kev, I shot both of them. A huge sob left Dante's body as the tears rolled down his face. Alex turned towards Maggie blankly. Neither of them could believe what their young son had just said. He had murdered 2 men. Maggie cleared her throat. You murdered 2 men in self-defense? Where are they? What happened to them? Dan! Stop crying! Where are the bodies of these men? Gripping Alex's hand tightly, Maggie felt sick to the pit of her stomach. She couldn't believe all of this had gone on under her nose and she'd known nothing about it. Had she really been so blind and wrapped up in herself that she had been gullible and accepted everything her children had told her? Inwardly, she felt she had failed them. Neither of them had come to her with their troubles or outlandish ideas. They had snuck around like thieves in the night and led double lives, and she had never noticed any difference in their behaviour. Guilt consumed her. Although none of this was her doing, as the parent she felt she should have noticed something. Trying to keep her voice steady, she felt she had to ask an important question. Before you answer that, Dan, are you and Deana taking drugs? She glanced at Alex. Dan shook his head. Absolutely not, Mum. We've sold drugs and I've made some too, but no, neither of us have dabbled in it. That kind of addiction doesn't interest me or Deana, I swear. Alex laughed out loud. That kind of addiction? He queried, not believing his ears. What, you think smoking cannabis is worse than killing two men and dealing drugs to other people? You'd better not have sold any to kids, because if you did, I will march you up to the police station myself. Not drugs, no, but I have sold some cheap cigarettes to the kids at school. And no, I don't think it's worse than what I've done, Dad. I'm a murderer. I have your blood in my veins, and maybe I'm more like you than we both realised. Dan snapped out of frustration. I shouldn't have been carrying a gun, I know that, but it seemed like a good idea at the time. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Mum, Dad. But this isn't all bad news. Me and Deana have bought the pub for you. You're the new anonymous owners. We wanted to pay our own university fees without being a drain on you both, but we also wanted to give you some kind of security. I don't deny the money went to our heads a bit, but we didn't realise we would make so much of it. It was crazy. Astonished at his revelation, Alex and Maggie looked at Dan with their mouths open. Alex couldn't believe what he was hearing, let alone make sense of it. So, you did all of that for us, Dan? Alex clapped his hands together in a round of applause. You and Deana run around dealing drugs, lying, cheating, and now murdering people, and all of that was to help your mum and dad, was it? So now we're to blame for your shortcomings, are we? How did you buy the pub? And just how much money are you talking about? It sounded like a horror movie, but this was reality at its worst. We made around £300,000 each. That's the four of us, not just me and Deana. We've hidden a lot of the money in a unit. We ran out of places to hide it from Mum. Dan's face burned with shame as he heard the words leaving his mouth. Alex let out a low whistle, his eyes wide with amazement. Wow, that's a lot of money. I can see now why people have got so upset. But you didn't do any of this for us. Buying this place, however you managed it, only eased your conscience. It made you feel you were doing it for a reason, when in actual fact, it was your egos and arrogance that pushed you on. You thought you were outwitting the professionals, and it was all a big joke. You stupid, stupid kids. Greedy, spoilt brats. You disgust me, and laying the blame at our feet only makes it worse. Well, I think my first port of call should be the hospital. Only Kev can tell us why he was getting beaten to a pulp, and who it was that you murdered on his behalf. Maybe he can shed some light on this. He's too drugged up, Dad. He doesn't know what day of the week it is. And that policeman on the door will interrogate you if you go. He lets me in because he's used to me, but you just being out of prison. Alex's eyes narrowed. Why has he got some copper on the door of his room, Dan? I don't know. I presume they want to investigate why he took such a brutal beating and need information. Bollocks! Alex laughed. I'll tell you why they have someone there. The truth is, they already know who Kev is and what he is. A dealer. What they want to know is, are the very same people who beat him up going to come back and finish the job? They wouldn't waste police time on Kev around the clock. He isn't worth it. But they think that whatever he knows is going to give them a good lead to a major drug dealer who wants his blood badly. Alex shook his head disbelievingly. What a bloody can of worms. Wait, Alex. We said earlier we would listen and not interrupt, but all we've done is fire questions at him. I want to hear the whole sordid story, because all we have at the moment are pieces of a jigsaw puzzle. It seems we have the worst bits out of the way, so at least the shock factor is gone. Taking a breath, Maggie stood up and poured herself and Alex another whiskey. Right then, Dante. I want the whole story. The pair of you have really taken me for a fool, haven't you? Maggie sighed, and exhaustion overwhelmed her. Alex stood up and wrapped his arms around his wife. You're right. We need to listen to Dante's story to see if there are any clues about where Deana might be, or who has her. We should get Luke around here too. Let's all put our heads together and try and work out who might have Deana. Waving a finger in Dante's face, Alex glared at him threateningly. I should be beating you to a pulp, Dan, but I need your information and contacts. But be warned, this is far from over. So go on, from the beginning, and this time no interruptions from us. Alex looked at Maggie. Agreed? Seeing Maggie nod her head, they both sat down, as Dan started from the very beginning. Alex's blood boiled as he listened to Dante recount his and Deana's adventures in the criminal world. Of how they had contacted Alex's old friend John to help them launder their ill-gotten gains, and how, after Dante had murdered the two men, they had been helped by a mysterious woman who had cleaned the flat of any traces that a gruesome beating and murder had taken place. He couldn't believe his ears. Part of him wanted to shake Dante, but he feared, if he started, he wouldn't be able to stop. But the business side of him was intrigued by the way they had achieved it. If he hadn't heard it himself from the horse's mouth, he would say it was all a lie. A knock at the door brought their conversation to a halt. Maggie opened the lounge door and saw Phyllis standing there. Sorry to interrupt, Maggie, but I've locked up and here's the keys. I'll drop the latch on my way out. Maggie was about to take the keys from Phyllis when Alex suddenly spoke. Actually, Phyllis, I wonder if I might ask a favour of you. Come in. Alex beckoned Phyllis into the lounge. Frowning, she noticed Dante's red, tear-stained face. This was not the happy union she had expected after Alex's sudden return. We've got a spot of trouble, Phyllis. I won't go into details, but I know you're a trusted friend of Maggie's and hopefully my own. A friend of sorts, well, more a friend of the kids, has been beaten up badly and is in hospital. The police are standing guard because they think the perpetrators may want to finish the job. I'd like to go and see if he's okay, but if I go and tell the copper on the door my name is Alex Silva, it could cast a cloud, if you know what I mean. Instantly, Phyllis's hackles went up. Suspiciously, she spied Alex. I understand what you mean about your name, but what is it that you want me to find out? What trouble are you in? It all sounds a bit strange to me, Alex. Phyllis's huge bulk more or less filled the doorway as she folded her arms defensively. Why is a policeman on the door? And who do they expect to finish the job? How do I know I'm not in danger? Look, Alex, if you want me to go spying for you, then I think I'm entitled to know what's going on, don't you? As Alex looked at her, he almost smiled. He had forgotten what a huge woman Phyllis was, and how scary she was. Sorry, Phyllis, I don't want to put you in a difficult position. The kids have got in with the wrong crowd, and I just wanted to make sure they were okay as well as their friend. It's maybe nothing, but I shouldn't involve outsiders. Sorry, Phyllis, but desperate times call for desperate measures. Forlornly, Alex looked at her and held out his hand to shake. Still friends, eh? Phyllis looked at him sternly and took his hand. No, Alex, I'm glad to see you're out of prison unscathed, but I am involved now, aren't I? You've asked me to do something without explanation, which tells me it's not above board, and you don't trust me. And yet you're happy for me to put my neck on the line for it. I deserve better, Mr. Silva, don't you think? Shaking her hand, Alex felt like biting his tongue. It had been a stupid idea, and he sorely regretted even mentioning it. Sorry, Phyllis, it was stupid of me. But as for an explanation, well, this man is a drug dealer, and I just wanted a chance to speak to him. The kids have befriended him, and I don't want them involved any more than they already are. Phyllis looked over at Dante and his red face, and then saw the worried look on Maggie's. Alex could see she was toying with the idea and thinking over his suggestion. I ran my own pub for many years, Alex, as you know, and came across all sorts, including plenty of drug dealers. What is it you want to know about this man exactly? Seeing that Phyllis had the bit between her teeth, Alex felt comfortable enough to carry on. Only how he is. I hear he's on a lot of medication, so he's very drowsy, so you would possibly learn nothing. I just wanted to know if he's going to mention Dante or Deana as being his friends, and whether they will be dragged into his mess. Are you a drug dealer, Dante? Phyllis barked across the room towards Dan. "Is that how you've bought all these new gadgets of yours, and your designer trainers? I'm not as ignorant to my surroundings as you think." Both Maggie and Alex looked across at Dan and stared at his feet. Even they hadn't realised his trainers were designer. "I've helped him out sometimes," Dan confessed. "Well, at least you're not lying to me. I will think on it and let you know in the morning. No promises, mind." Giving Alex a warning look, she nodded to Maggie and put the pub keys in her hand. Turning, she left the room, walked down the stairs, and they all stood in silence as they heard the downstairs door shut behind her. Maggie let out a huge sigh and sat down on the sofa. "Why did you ask her that, Alex?" Maggie almost whispered. "Because I have a feeling that whoever called you could be watching the pub. They will want to know if the police are involved. So we all need to keep our heads down for the moment, which means none of us going anywhere near that hospital again. But Phyllis can go in our place, which means Dante should be safe. I don't need 2 kidnapped kids. 1 is hard enough to trace." Chapter 2. The Cold Light of Day. Bleary-eyed, Maggie stretched and yawned in bed. It had been a long night for all of them, and between herself and Alex, they had taken it in turns to keep watch out of the window and listen for the mobile to ring. Blinking hard, she saw Alex sitting at the bedroom window and felt a sadness wash over her. She had prayed for his homecoming, but not like this. He had come home to nothing but trouble, rather than being able to relax and put his feet up after his time in prison. "Anything to see, love?" She yawned and threw back the duvet. "Nothing, but I know someone is watching us. I can feel it. Although I've been blinded by that monstrosity of a car outside. Just because a pub has a car park, do people think they can use it whenever they like? It must be one of Mark's mechanic jobs, although why someone with an expensive car like this would let him touch it is beyond me. Come and see." Maggie stood beside him and looked out of the window. A smile crossed her face as she looked out at the pink car. "My God, all it needs now is Lady Penelope. It's like something out of the Thunderbirds." She laughed. "Come on, I'll put the kettle on. You must be shattered. I know I am, and you never even slept while I was on watch." "I needed to think about the things Dante told us. I can't believe what they've been up to. It beggars belief, Maggie. I have some leads I need to follow, and I think we could find some answers, but we need to do something. God knows where Deana is or what's happening to her, but one thing is for sure, she will be frightened. Although, to be honest, Maggie, part of me thinks she's getting what she deserves." Alex held up his hand to stop Maggie's protective protests. "You play with fire, Maggie, you're going to get your fingers burnt. They've both strutted around like the Godfather without a care in the world. Did they really believe they could just walk away from it all and that would be the end of it? That kind of money is addictive. They didn't need to take drugs, they were already on a high from the adrenaline of the cash they were making. We need to be vigilant in the pub. You never know who might walk in, and we're an open target." Reaching out to her, he pulled her onto his knee. "Somehow we'll sort this out. But how and when, I just don't know." Putting his arms around her, he gave her a weak smile of reassurance, but inside, Alex felt utterly hopeless. "What are these leads you have? Is there something I can do?" "Firstly, I need to speak to our old friend John. Why Dante contacted him, I don't know. I can see his reasoning that John could launder their money and buy this place for them, but I wish they'd kept him out of it. Secondly, I need to trace the woman who cleaned Kev's flat and let the kids disappear. That doesn't make sense to me. Why should someone be on their side unless they want something? But Dan said they haven't been in touch and made themselves known. But nobody organizes something like that without wanting something in return." Maggie reached for the cigarette packet that was on the windowsill and lit one. "Want to share?" Seeing Alex nod, she held it to his lips. "Maybe this woman is a friend of John's, and he's been keeping an eye on the kids from afar. He's an old friend. He would do that kind of thing." "That's one idea, but why didn't he tell me? Why didn't he come to see me?" More to the point, why didn't he do more to stop them? He could even have come and told you. I just don't understand. If it was his kids, I'd have wrung their necks and put a stop to their adventure. But no, he buys the pub for them and takes his commission. This is one big mess, and Dante is looking at a double murder charge if it ever gets out. Who were the men that beat Kev up, and why? My guess is their little adventure was coming to an end, and they had been found out. Now they are paying the price. We are all paying the price, because the fallout from this isn't going to be pretty, believe me. Maggie's face paled as Alex's words about Dan facing a lifetime in prison sunk into her brain. She felt sick at the thought of it.
But it was self-defense, Alex. Dan didn't go in there to shoot someone.
Dan was carrying a gun, Maggie. You don't carry one unless you're going to shoot someone. And where is the gun now? After everything I've taught them, I can't believe he let that gun out of his sight and didn't get rid of it himself. Someone has it with his DNA all over it, which is hardcore evidence, you know that. Raising his eyebrows, he shrugged. All we can do now is wait and let this nightmare unfold. A cold chill ran through Maggie, making her shiver, and she rubbed her arms to warm herself. It felt like someone had walked over her grave. Alex was right, she knew that, but she didn't want to face the ramifications of his chilling words.
I'll put the kettle on.
Seeing her reaching for her dressing gown, Alex smiled. The good old English tradition of a cup of tea. It makes everything better. Doctors should prescribe it. Ignoring his comment, Maggie left the room. Alex looked out of the window while finishing his half of the cigarette. Where are you, you bastards? He muttered to himself. And where is my daughter? Running his hands through his black hair, he stood up and let out a huge sigh. Seeing himself in the mirror as he was leaving the bedroom, he realized he hadn't had a shower or changed his clothes since leaving prison yesterday. He was still wearing the suit he had worn in court, and it smelt musty and hung oddly on his frame after the weight he had lost. He shook his head as he looked at the vision before him. He might not be able to do much at the moment, but he could make himself look more respectable and smell a bit sweeter. Standing in the doorway of the kitchen in his pajamas, Dante yawned and glanced around, expecting to see his father. His eyes were slightly swollen from all the crying he had done the night before, and still stung a little. He glanced at Maggie standing at the stove, the smell of bacon wafting around the kitchen.
Is it safe to come in?
Turning from the frying pan, Maggie smiled.
It is. Come in and sit down, Dan. Your dad's in the shower.
Giving her a weak smile, Dante walked into the kitchen and sat down at the table.
I'm sorry, Mum. I'm sorry for everything. I'd give anything to turn back the clock.
Well, you can't, son. And God knows how many times I've heard that in the past. Alex boomed as he walked into the kitchen, still towel-drying his shoulder-length black hair. Looking down at the table, Dan glanced at his father from under his lashes.
You hate me, don't you?
He muttered. No, I don't. I don't like you very much for all the deceit and the way you have treated your mother, but you're my son, and I'm stuck with you. The same as you're stuck with me. I haven't been a good example, and people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones, eh? I've dragged you and Deana around the country living in hellholes while trying to clean up my mess, and you stuck by me. So who am I to judge anyone? Humbled by his father's words, Dante looked up.
Thanks, Dad. Well, get this down you. Bacon sandwiches all around. We're family, Dan. No matter what, we stick together.
Maggie smiled as she watched the two men in her life tuck into their sandwiches. She knew that Alex had done a lot of thinking overnight and possibly laid most of the blame on himself for the mess they were in now. And she knew most people would agree with that. But Alex had never forced them to do anything they didn't want to. Hearing a loud banging at the door, Alex stood up quickly and wrapped his dressing gown around him. I'll go. The worried look on Maggie's face dropped as she heard the voice shouting up at the window.
God, can he smell bacon or what? It's just Mark, Alex.
Frowning, Alex listened and then a broad grin crossed his face as he heard the familiar voice of his friend and neighbour boom up at the window. "Come on, you lovebirds, up and at 'em, let me in," Mark shouted, and there was more knocking at the door. Alex went down and opened the door and was greeted by a burst of laughter. "Nice dressing gown, Alex. Not quite your colour, though." Smiling, Alex looked down at himself. He had quickly picked up Maggie's pink toweling dressing gown when he'd got out of the shower. "You don't fancy me, then?" Alex laughed. "Nah, mate, leg's too hairy for me. Is that bacon I smell?" Marching past Alex, Mark ran upstairs to join them in the kitchen. "Mine's with brown sauce, Maggie. Come on, Dan, pick up the teapot. A working man needs a builder's tea in the morning." As usual, Mark had lightened the mood. His brash, funny ways were enough to make anyone laugh. "I'll tell you what, though, Alex, mate, that pink dressing gown of yours is nothing in comparison to that pink car in your car park. I hope the owner comes back for it soon, or my Olivia will want one when she sees it." Mark laughed again, but Dan flashed a glance at Alex and paled. Not quite understanding Dan's look, Alex frowned. "I saw that myself. I thought it was one you were fixing." "God, no. That car's got this year's number plate, so will still be under warranty. God knows when it was put there. It certainly wasn't there yesterday." Mark laughed and put more sugars in his mug of tea before walking to the window with Alex behind him. As they did, Dante pulled on the back of Alex's dressing gown and mouthed, "It's Deana's car." Puzzled, Alex looked out of the window while Mark laughed and joked about it. "It's exactly the kind of car Deana would have picked for herself," Mark said, oblivious, taking a bite out of his bacon sandwich. "But she'd have to do a lot of shelf stacking to be able to afford a car like that," he added, his mouth full. Alex looked at Maggie and slowly nodded his head. Without thinking, she put her hands to her mouth to stop the gasp escaping and peered closely out of the window. "Yes, she would, wouldn't she, Dan?" said Maggie. "Most definitely, Mum. That's exactly what Deana would buy if she had that kind of money." Alex, Maggie and Dante all cast furtive glances at each other as they realised just what an innocent bombshell Mark had dropped. Mentally, Alex realised he was right. He couldn't be sure how or when, but that car had been parked there during the night as a message. Someone was definitely watching them. But Alex couldn't understand it. He had sat vigilantly watching for any kind of movement outside. Surely he would have seen whoever had parked it. If that was Deana's car, as Dante was indicating, then she must have been driving it before her kidnappers had caught up with her. "Well, if it's joyriders parking it there after stealing it, the pub's CCTV cameras will have picked it up, wouldn't they, Mum?" Dan piped up. Puzzled, Alex looked at Maggie. "You have CCTV cameras installed now. Why didn't you tell me?" Alex felt he could have strangled Maggie. He had sat awake all night, and yet the pub had cameras installed. "It must have slipped my mind, Alex. And there's only one out the back and the front, and it doesn't point directly into the car park. The brewery put them up before they sold this place," Maggie stammered, realising her oversight. She had been so wrapped up with Dante's confession and thoughts of Deana, she had forgotten all about the cameras. "So, what are your plans today, Alex?" Mark boomed. "Olivia is planning a welcome home party for you. Anything for a party, you know us. You can come and see my new summer house. Built it myself, I did," said Mark proudly as he stuck out his chest. Alex looked at him oddly and cocked his head to one side. "You've built a summer house?" "Yes, it's got kitchen and everything. Gas hob, wired up to a gas bottle, microwave and sink. It's great for outdoor parties. Saves people traipsing through the house with dirty shoes on." Instantly, Maggie looked down at Mark's filthy work boots. "What, like you have in mine?" she laughed. "Let me get dressed and sorted and I'll meet you at yours to admire your carpentry. As for the party, I want to play it low-key. No fuss." Alex was itching to get rid of Mark now that he knew the pub had cameras. He wanted to see what was on them. "Too late for that, Alex, mate. The banners are already being put up outside as we speak. But I've got a few errands to run first." Turning to Dan, Mark looked at him closely. "You off to school today, Dante?" You look a bit peaky."
"No, I think he's coming down with something, Mark."
Maggie lied.
"It's best if he stays at home today. I'll ring the school."
"Yeah, I'd go back to bed if I was you, Dante. You look like shit." Giving him a weak smile, Dan nodded.
"Thanks for that. I think I will."
"Right, I'm off. Thanks for the sandwich and tea. See you later, Alex, and leave Maggie alone. Give her time to get her breath back, poor cow. She must be saddle sore by now. Months in prison and all that pent-up passion." Mark laughed and was about to walk out of the door when he turned and wrapped his arms around Alex and patted him on the back. "It's good to have you back, mate." Blushing slightly, he quickly turned and left the room, almost running down the stairs to the door.
"Well, he's pleased to see you, but if Olivia is out there putting banners up, that's your cover blown, Alex. There's no turning back, but at least they're doing it with the best of intentions, so don't complain," Maggie warned.
"Never mind that. Dan, you never said Deana had a pink car. What the fuck is all that about? She's not exactly a low-key dealer, is she? How much did that cost?"
"She hasn't had it long. Her old one was always breaking down. But she always parked her new one at Luke's house, along with my bike."
Dan looked at his mum. He felt with every word that left his mouth, he dug a deeper hole for himself. Half of him wished he'd been kidnapped so that Deana could sit here facing the stern looks of his parents. Astonished at this new bit of information, Alex let out a huge sigh. "You know what? I think we should go and see Luke. After all, my short-lived cover is already blown, so I might as well go out. So you've got a fucking motorbike. Do you have a license? Oh, shit. Scrap that. How fucking old and sensible have I become? So you and Deana felt you should branch out and spend a shitload of money, hoping no one would wonder where you suddenly got your new wheels from. What colour's your bike? Luminous green? For fuck's sake, I can't believe my ears. Why didn't you just put a big flag up saying, 'Drug dealers live here'? You two really didn't care or think about what you were doing, did you? Sometimes I can't believe you're mine." Dante had suddenly had enough of taking all the blame and couldn't help snapping back at his father.
"I'm not as stupid as Deana. I warned her about that car. I warned Deana about everything, but she wouldn't listen. Most of it she did just to impress Kev. She's love-struck and thinks he can do no wrong. I know we both did it, but it wasn't all my doing, so why am I taking all the flack, Dad?"
"Because you're the only one here," Alex shouted, and before he could stop himself, he reached out and slapped Dante across the face, hard, sending him sprawling to the kitchen floor. Shocked, Alex instantly regretted doing it. He had never raised a hand to his children, but all of his pent-up anger and frustration had just bubbled over.
"Alex, stop it!"
Maggie screamed and knelt down beside Dante.
"Are you okay, Dan?"
she soothed while he rubbed the red mark which burned on his cheek. Maggie picked the chair up off the floor and held out a hand to help Dante up. Tears fell down his face as he tried squaring his jaw. His father's slap had felt like a sledgehammer on his face, almost knocking him senseless. He held on to Maggie to steady himself as he got up and sat back in his chair.
"I suppose I deserved that, Dad," he muttered.
"Sorry, son, I shouldn't have done that. Even though you are right, you do deserve it. But I'm sorry." Excusing himself, Alex walked out and into the bedroom to get dressed. He could have bitten his hand off for striking his son like that. As Alex sat in the bedroom, contemplating his next move, he could hear the staff coming to work downstairs. It felt strange to him. Prison was a strange institution, and he realised he'd forgotten the sounds linked to the daily management of the pub. It all seemed very quiet, without doors banging and the sound of keys in locks. The men's chatter as they went about their duties for the day. It was the noise, or rather the lack of it, that had kept him awake last night. The silence of being home seemed to overwhelm him, and he hadn't realised how much. All prison inmates talked about the transition from prison back to Civvy Street, and some found it so difficult that at the first opportunity they did whatever it took to go back. That was why they had probation officers to see them through this time in between. Looking at his watch, Alex remembered he had to go to the police station and check in, too. He only had a week out of prison to sort this mess out, and already he dreaded going back. His mind wandered to the chef he had worked alongside, and he hoped he was getting on okay. He had been a kind man, although the prison warder had used him like a pawn in his game. When Alex had discovered that the warder was having drugs brought in by way of the kitchen deliveries, he had tipped off the prison governor in a desperate attempt to get out of prison once he'd heard there was trouble at home. Fortunately, it had worked, and the governor had looked upon him favourably and granted him a week's leave, with the possibility of Alex never having to go back. Mentally, Alex didn't want to think that far ahead for fear of disappointment. There was a chance, even if it was a slim one, that he wouldn't have to go back inside, and he was clinging on to that for now. Hearing the comings and goings downstairs brought Alex out of his thoughts. He knew everyone would be busy and that now was the perfect time to look at the CCTV footage. Going downstairs, he saw Maggie and the bar staff stocking up the shelves. "Morning, everyone. Don't mind me. I just want a word with Maggie before I go out." Maggie walked toward Alex and was surprised to see Phyllis was hot on her heels. "Could I have a quick word, Alex?" "Come into the staff room, Phyllis." Once in the staff room, the three of them sat down. "I'll not mess around, Alex. That request last night. It occurred to me that this person I would be visiting, I don't even know what they look like." Suddenly the door burst open and Dante walked in. "Sorry, I didn't realise you were in here. I was just looking for Mum." Alex looked up and beckoned Dan in. "Come in and shut the door behind you. Phyllis was just saying that she can't do the favour I mentioned last night because she doesn't know what the person looks like." Turning towards Phyllis, Alex apologised again. "Forget it, Phyllis. I shouldn't have put you in that situation. I'm sorry." "Yes, she does." Dante butted in. "She knows him." Everyone stared blankly at Dan. "How do I know him?" Phyllis snapped indignantly and folded her arms in her usual manner. Excitedly, Dan felt he finally had something positive to add to the conversation. "Kev came and worked here as the agency chef. Do you remember, Phyllis? Because I know you liked his rhubarb crumble." Dan grinned. "The chef!" they all blurted out together. Amazed, Maggie looked around the table. "Have I been walking around with my eyes closed or something? You always acted like you didn't know each other. I must be a real bloody mug." "I remember the young chef. He was good at his job, I must say. Is that the young man in hospital?" Phyllis asked. Dante nodded. Phyllis's eyes lit up with this new snippet of news. "Well, in that case, I don't see a problem with me popping in the hospital and taking him some grapes. After all, we are work colleagues. Why wouldn't I go and see him?" Phyllis winked at Alex. Alex shook his head. "Thanks, Phyllis, but I don't want to involve you in our mess. It was stupid of me to ask in the first place. I can't apologise enough, Phyllis." Spying him cautiously, Phyllis took her usual stance and stood with her large feet apart and her arms folded. "I've had all night to think, Alex, and if you're asking me this, then you really are desperate. And Deana's absence hasn't been mentioned, so I can only assume she's involved too." Letting out a huge sigh, she nodded her head when no one answered her. "If I can help, I will. And hearing a young colleague is in hospital, and I've just heard about it, won't come as any big surprise to the police. I'm just a nosy old woman visiting. I'm not sure what he'll be able to tell me, but I will help if I can. As for the rest, I'd rather not know unless I have to. Then, if I am ever questioned, I don't have to lie. Is that fair?" Humbled by Phyllis's show of friendship, which he knew was more for Maggie than himself, Alex felt himself blush. "That's more than fair." Alex held out his hand to shake Phyllis's. "Right, I'd better get back to work before the boss here deducts my wages for gossiping. And later on, during visiting time, I will just disappear, so don't wonder where I am when I'm not about. It will only spark everyone's curiosity. Okay." Alex nodded as Phyllis walked away. Sighing, he looked at Maggie. "You've got a good friend there, Maggie." Changing the subject, he narrowed his eyes, remembering the job in hand.
Where are the monitors for these CCTV cameras the brewery put up? Shrugging, Maggie shook her head. Like I said, they aren't very good. The brewery doesn't expect big trouble around here as it's mainly a quiet area. Well, it was before we moved in. She laughed. Seeing the smile return to Alex's face, she pointed her finger to the floor. They put the monitors in the cellar, but follow me, love. Alex followed Maggie down to the cellar, shaking his head almost disbelievingly. Why would anyone put a CCTV monitor in the cellar? He thought to himself. It was the most ridiculous thing he'd ever heard. What are you supposed to do, Maggie? Keep running down to the cellar to see who's outside? I think they only put the cameras up for insurance purposes. It reduced the rate and the insurance company was happy. Once down in the cellar, Maggie pointed to what looked like an old black and white television and stood back. We'd have better security if we bought a dog, she grinned. Alex stepped forward and looked at the fuzzy black and white screen before him and burst out laughing. That's supposed to keep you secure. I swear, my great-grandmother had something like that to watch the Queen's coronation on. I can't see anything. I mean, it's not exactly top-notch security, is it? Grinning broadly, Maggie stepped forward to the machine below the television monitor and fiddled with the buttons. Rewind it back to about midnight. I'll start from there. Sitting down on an empty beer barrel, Alex watched the monitor intently. Apart from people walking past, he couldn't make out faces or if they were male or female. The security cameras were indeed a load of crap. Maggie brought them both a mug of tea into the cold cellar, and they peered closely at the snowy-looking black and white screen. Alex, this is useless. Shouldn't we be doing something more to look for Deana? Anything could be happening to her now. Sitting here isn't doing anyone any favours, and we're wasting the short time you have out of prison. Ignoring her, Alex peered closely at the screen, trying to make sense of it, when suddenly something caught his eye. Maggie, go back. That bit there. Maggie picked up the remote control and rewound the tape. Stop! Alex shouted, looking more intensely at the screen. Is that a rescue truck? Standing up, Alex pointed to the screen. Yeah, it's a rescue truck without its flashing yellow lights. Even the headlights aren't on, which isn't right. And surely, around here, someone would call Mark to come out as he's cheaper and well-known. I don't remember seeing that, Alex. Oh my God, was it my shift to be on lookout? Had I fallen asleep? Downhearted, Maggie sat down again. She felt almost sick at missing such an important clue. It could have been either of us, Maggie, and with no lights and no noise, it would have been easy to miss if we'd been in the loo. Shit, Alex cursed. I wish this screen was clearer. Is that Deana's car they're unloading from the truck? I think it is. Bastards! I can't see their faces. Rewind it again, Alex commanded. After she did as she was told, they both watched the screen, trying to make sense of it. I think they're wearing balaclavas, Maggie. Everything is pitch black. You're right. Oh, for Christ's sake, how did we miss that? A cold shiver ran down her spine and she shuddered. Alex shook his head. Never mind that, Maggie. Look, only one of them is getting back into the truck. Where's the other one? Moving closer, Alex nearly had his nose pressed against the monitor. Fuck. The other one must have a car parked further away, maybe down a side street or something. Suddenly, they saw a flash of headlights as a car drove past the camera. I bet that's the other guy, Alex said slowly. We would have just thought it was a car driving past. YC6. That's the only part I can make out of the number plate. I can't even make out the model, the headlights are so bright. Alex took hold of the remote control and switched the monitor off. Trying to stand after kneeling on the cold cement floor, Alex felt pins and needles in his legs and rubbed them, then rubbed his shoulders. Bloody hell, it's freezing down here. Raising her eyebrows, Maggie smiled. Well, it's to keep the beer cold, love. Come on, let's go upstairs. We fucked up, Alex. I don't know how we missed that, but we did. Those men were just monkeys, Maggie. Street soldiers without a brain cell between them. Probably got a few £100 for doing that without knowing why. The biggest clue will be inside Deana's car, but I can't get into it in broad daylight. Everyone's eyes are on that pink monstrosity. Christ, what was Deana thinking? Alex shook his head. She's a bolshy teenager with money to burn. Well, she's burnt now, and I hope wherever she is, it's giving her time to think about her actions. Seeing the angry glare from Maggie, Alex shook his head. Oh, I'm worried too, but she's still alive, Maggie. Someone has gone to a lot of trouble already. Bringing you, dumping her car outside. So my gut instinct says she's not dead. They will contact us again soon. All we can do is wait to hear what they want from us. In the meantime, I need to gather as much information as possible. I'm going to the police station to check in, and then I'm going to see Luke. Maybe he can shed some light on this. What about John? Maggie asked hopefully. He's a major boss in the mafia world now, Alex. Wouldn't he be able to help? Maybe he could get the men that work for him to put their ears to the ground in case they hear of anything. I don't want to call him favours yet, until I know more. There's nothing I can tell him until we know what these people want. I'll ask for his help when I need it. Alex had a strange, nagging feeling about his old friend, John. If John knew anything, he would have either told Maggie or been to visit Alex by now, knowing he was already home. So why hadn't he called? The obvious answer was that he didn't know anything. Or he knew too much. Chapter 3. The Mystery Unfolds. Deana wiped the dried blood from her nose where she had been punched. She could barely see through the slits of her swollen eyes. She had cried so much and felt dirty and dishevelled as she paced the small room which, in her mind's eye, would be similar to the cell her father was in. The windows were boarded up and there was no air, only a small vent in the wall. The light bulb hung low from its baton and there was a duvet and a pillow in the corner and, much to Deana's distaste, a bucket to use as a toilet. The stark bareness made her shudder with cold, and sitting in the corner, she started to weep again. Her mind wandered to her mother and Dante. What were they doing to find her? She felt very afraid and alone. As the door opened, Deana stood up with the duvet wrapped around her. Her captors always wore balaclavas when they came in the room, so she couldn't see their faces. Now, they rolled a large bottle of water towards her and slid across a plastic carton containing cold baked beans with a wooden spoon and a loaf of bread. "Who are you? What do you want from me, you weirdos? Where am I?" Deana shouted. "Does my mother know I've been kidnapped?" Spit.